let's go to the second essay of Dr. Jose Rizal, which is the Indolence of the Filipinos. Again, I want everybody to ponder on this quotation. Every creature has its stimulus, its mainspring. Man's is his self-esteem. Take it away from him and he is a corpse. And he who seeks activity in a corpse will encounter only worms. Of course, kapag tinanggalan natin ng karapatang pantao ang isang tao, parang patay na siya. At kapag patay ang isang tao, uuudin siya at it will never be beneficial or hindi tayo makikinabang doon, kundi yung uod. Ang uod ay nagre-represent ng broken system or bulok na sistema ng isang society or ng isang community, which is very applicable in today's setting kasi alam naman natin na there are many issues and conflicts within our country, which is we can ponder or deduce or reflect in this quotation of Dr. Jose Rizal, which is taken to the indolence of the Filipinos. And we have wrote actually 8 summary statement, the Galleon Trade, which is when we say the establishment of Galleon Trade, it cuts all the previous associations of the Philippines with our other countries in Asia and the Middle East. Because when we talk about indolence, ito yung katamaran. Kapag i-translate natin sa Tagalog, ang indolence of the Filipinos or ang katamaran ng mga Pilipino. Or sa Spanish, La Indolencia de los Filipinos. And it talks about the exploratory essay written by our Philippine national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal, which is to explain the alleged idleness of the people during the Spanish colonization. First, here we have the Galleon Trade. And when we talk about the Galleon Trade, it is the establishment of the Galleon Trade, which cuts all the previous associations of the Philippines with other countries in Asia and the Middle East. As a result, business was only conducted in Spain through Mexico. Because of this, small businesses and handicrafts, industries, and flourished during the pre-Spanish period gradually disappeared. And when we talk about the Galleon Trade, ito yung mga pakikibaka, pakikiparter ng mga tao, which is very beneficial during that time. Pero noong may Spanish colonization na, ito yung nagpahina sa economy ng Pilipinas at pakikibaka or pakikibarter ng Pilipino sa karatig bansa natin. Second would be extinguish the natives' love of work. Spain also extinguished the native love of work because of the Filipinos' implementation of forced labor. Because of this, the war between Spain and other countries in Europe as well as the Muslims in Mindanao, the Filipinos were compelled to work in shipyards, roads, and other public works, and abandoning the culture or agriculture, industry, and commerce. So, na-divert yung gustong mga gawin ng Pilipino noon, na-divert sa kung anong gustong gawin ng Spaniards. Kaya, hindi nila gustong gawin yon pero wala silang choice kasi mas malakas ang Spanish noon or mga Spaniards. Third will be against foreign invaders. It's quite ironic because when we talk about foreign invaders, it talks about the Spanish or the Spaniards who colonized our country during that time, and ayaw nila magpapasok ng ibang tao or ibang ethnicity or race kasi gusto nilang makinabang lapas sila sa resources ng Philippines noon. Fourth would be the crooked system of education. There was a crooked system of education if it was to be considered an education. And what was being taught in the schools were repetitive prayers and other things that could not be used by the student to lead the country to progress. There were no courses in agriculture, industry, etc. where we were badly needed by the Philippines during those times. Kasi the Philippines is an agricultural country, and when we talk about agriculture, it becomes our first and foremost livelihood, and tinanggal yon ng mga Spanish colonizer. And itong the indolence of the Filipinos ay gusto lang i-remind ni Jose Rizal kung ano yung mga rason, kung ano yung mga rason ng pagiging katamaran ng Pilipino, at yun ay nagdulot or ito ay dinulot ng mga Spaniards. Fifth would be the spice of manual labor. When we talk about the manual labor, ayaw daw ng mga Spaniards ang manual labor, pero gustong-gusto nila yung mga alipin, mga enslave, ganon. And the officials reported to work at noon and left early, all the while doing nothing in line with their duties. The women were seen constantly followed by servants who dressed them and fanned them personal things which they ought to have done for themselves. So ayaw daw ng mga Spaniards noon na magtrabaho sila, pero gustong pagsilbihan yung mga Spaniards. Gusto kundi paypay, kundi luto, kundi nagigib ng tubig para sa kanila, and yun yung gusto ng mga Spaniards, pero ayaw ng Spaniards na magtrabahong Pilipino para yumaman. So that's how crooked that system during those times. 6 would be the gambling was established. Eto pala, nauso pala ang pagsusugal noon during the Spanish time. And when we talk about gambling, and it was established and widely propagated during those times, almost every day there were cockfights. Ito yung sabong. And during feast days, the government officials and friars were the first to engage in all sorts of bets and gambles. Tignan nyo, noon pa lang ang mga government officials, ang mga pari during that time, sila yung nagpapanukala or sila yung nagiging role model ng hindi magandang mga gawain and salungat sa mga ipinapakita nila or itinuturo nila sa simbahan at sa gobyerno. 7 will be the crooked system of religion. This was very crucial during that time because Jose Rizal was an excommunicado or kalaban ng simbahan at kalaban ng gobyerno, and he was very vocal on his stand. And when we talk about the crooked system of religion, the friars thought to be naive to Filipinos that it was easier for a poor man to enter heaven. And so they preferred not to work and remain poor so that they could easily enter heaven after they died. Ito yung nakakatawa na nabasa ko sa essay ni Rizal na Indolence of the Filipinos. And yung tinuro ng mga pari noon na kapag pobre yung isang tao, mas madali siyang umakyat sa heaven. At kapag ganoon din naman ang mindset ng Pilipino, ay, alangan naman na magtrabaho pa ako at gusto ko naman mas mahirap at mas madali akong pumunta sa heaven. And that was very ironic and it quite very stupid to say na there should be a balance between our social status, and without earning enough money and will become poor, and we can easily go to heaven. And that was very stupid to say during that time. And isa yun sa pinaka masamang ginawa ng mga friars during that time, na pinaniwala nila ang mga Filipino people that they can go to heaven being poor. And that was the main reason, or one of the main reasons, of the indolences of the Filipino people. And last but not the least, taxes were extremely high. Kita nyo, so much so that the huge portion of what they earned went to the government or to the friars. And when the object of their labor was removed and were exploited, they were reduced to inaction. Kita nyo, noon pa pala ay medyo gahaman ang gobyerno during that time at ang mga pari. Imagine nyo, yung mga Filipino people ay nagtatrabaho at mas malaki pa yung buwis na kinukuha nila. Kaya mahirap noon ang mga Filipino people at wala silang magawa kasi they were being oppressed. And imagine, for 333 years, ganun yung mga nangyari sa mga ancestors natin. And last but not the least, also, it was written in the Indolence of the Filipino that Rizal admitted that the Filipinos did not work so hard because they were wise enough to adjust themselves to the warm tropical climate. An hour's work under the burning sun in the midst of the pernicious influences springing from nature inactivity is equal to a day's labor in temperate or intemperate climate. And when we talk about this, it becomes more evident na ang pagiging pagiging Pilipino noon ay isang parang nagiging kasalanan kasi kung Filipino ka noon, kapag ipinanganak ka, magiging slave ka. So, that becomes, in today's society, ito yung tinatawag nating Asian hate, which becomes very rampant in 2020, 2021, and even up to this day, rampant na yung mga Asian hate or other racial discrimination. Let's go to the summary or the analysis of the indolence of the Filipinos. When we talk about indolence in the Philippines is chronic. Chronic means innate na sa atin pero hindi naman namamana. Kapag sinabi nating innate, natural sa atin pero hindi natin namamana in a sense na kapag yung tatay mo matamad, yung nanay mo matamad, maging matamad ka, it's a choice. Being an indolent person is a choice. And the reason for this said indolence were clearly stated in the essay and were not based only on presumptions but were grounded on fact taken from history. Third analysis will be the lack of unity among the Filipino people. And it says here that a man in the Philippines is an individual. He is not merely a citizen of the country. And when we talk about indolence, katamaran, ay isa rin ito sa mga nagiging dahilan yung pagkawatak-watak ng mga tao noon, the lack of unity among the people. And when we say unity, kapag nagsama-sama tayo, of course, we can influence other people and we can have an impact to them, and a positive change and a positive or adaptive change can be done. And when we talk about unity among people, papasok dito yung no man is an island, kasi kapag nag-iisa ka, syempre hindi mo magagawang isang bagay, and when you are more than one, more than two, maging easy yung job and it can be done successfully and gracefully. And last but not the least, as part of the analysis, it is not only the Philippines but also other countries that may be called indolent depending on the criteria upon which such a label is based on. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina na to be an indolent person is a choice. Choice mo maging matamad, choice mo maging impertinent at sometimes, and this can be addressed and mitigated through proper ways of being a collaborative person, nakikibaka ka, nakikisocialize ka, and it becomes a habit and a positive habit at that point. Next will be the indolence of the Filipinos, facts and trivia. The indolence of the Filipinos, it was originally written in Spanish. The translation of the indolence of the Filipinos is La Indolencia de los Filipinos. It was published in La Solidaridad in 5 installments from July 15 to September 15, 1890. 3 years after he wrote Dinoli Mitanghere, and this essay is a 19-page essay. Parang ito yung ganyan noon. Kung ito yung La Solidaridad noon, parang comics ngayon or parang manga sa Japanese, may installment siya. First season, second season, third season, fourth season, and fifth season. And yung kay Rizal, hanggang fifth season siya. And it took almost 3 months to write this one. And I think that ends the part of the indolence of the Filipinos. And let's go to the Philippines a century hence, the last essay of Dr. Jose Rizal.